All right, so this is a New York Times article, everyone. A Minneapolis neighborhood vowed to check its privilege. It's already being tested. Blocks from where Jorge Floyd drew his last breaths, residents vowed to avoid police to protect people of color. The commitment is hard to keep. And I always think about this with more of a cynical vision, but take a look here. Look at this photo. A few weeks ago, dozens of tents appeared in Powderhorn Park in Minneapolis, brought by homeless people who were displaced during the unrest that gripped the city after the death of Jorge Floyd. So homeless people displaced, they were in downtown, I assume that's where all the action was at. But those individuals displaced decided to just go to this park here. Now, if you take a look in the background, there's a house there. But can you imagine that this is your house and you look out one day and there's 10 tents or more? This reminds me of when they talk about checking your privilege and saying that it's being tested. It reminds me of the Chads, right? The summer of love, the hippie love fest. Oh, we're just all out here having fun. 5 shootings and 4 nights later. That's what happens when people get together in any collective. Look, being in a relationship, a marriage, with your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever, those are hard enough. It's hard enough to kind of work within the framework of a couple working towards a common goal or whatever, right? While maintaining your individuality, as I've said before. But now you get hundreds of thousands of people in the Chaz. What did you think was going to happen? Egos being what they are, right? It's just hard to get a collective of people to come together for the greater good. Everybody has their own idea as to how that looks. All right, let's read some of this article here. Minneapolis, when Sherry Albers moved 3 decades ago into Powderhorn Park, a tree-lined Minneapolis neighborhood known as a haven to leftist activists and bohemian artists like herself. She went to work sprucing it up. She became a block club leader, organizing her mostly white neighbors to bring in playgrounds and help tackle long-standing issues with crime. On many nights, she banged on car windows of men who had come to solicit prostitutes outside her door, she said. She kept meticulous notes when dozens of men would gather in circles for gang meetings in the park across from her house. After each episode, she called the police. How dare she? She must be racist. She must hate the colored man, I swear. And that's what I was saying was funny was whenever white people, and it's always white liberal types, whenever they say, we need to get rid of the police, and statistics are what they are. We need to get rid of the police to protect the people of color. Their assumption is that crime is always a colored thing, that white people don't commit crime. Oh, we've got to get rid of these police. They're only out here harassing colored people. Again, doesn't it seem a little racialized? Again, like I said, statistics are what they are. We can point to what group of individuals disproportionately commits the crime. If I said to you, oh man, these animals are out here in the streets committing crime, and a color of somebody pops in your head, even though statistics are what they are, like I said, in the white liberal mind, a color is going to pop in their mind. And doesn't that seem a little racialized? A little prejudicial? Interesting how far leftist types, and probably far righties as well, are the ones who would think about stuff like that and attach a color to a statement. Interesting. All right, let's read a little more. But times have changed. After the death, Miss Albers, who was white, and many of her progressive neighbors have vowed to avoid calling law enforcement into their community. Doing so, they believed, would add to the pain that black residents of Minneapolis were feeling and could put them in danger. And like I said, is that a direct quote from them, or is that just the New York Times individual writing that up? But that's just what I was saying. If I say, we're not calling in the police, and instantly you snap to black, what's that say about you and your assumptions? Again, statistics are what they are, but it's interesting how these liberal types think. I'm just saying. Already that commitment is being challenged 2 weeks ago. Dozens of multicolored tents. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Multicolored tents, okay. Because that apparently is the only thing multicolored in Powderhorn Park. And thank goodness those tents are multicolored, or else there'd be no diversity of tents there. They were brought by homeless people who were displaced during the unrest that gripped the city. The multiracial group of roughly 300 new residents, damn, 300 new residents, seems to grow larger and more entrenched every day. They do laundry, listen to music, and strategize about how to find permanent housing. Some are hampered by mental illness, addiction, or both. Their presence has drawn heavy car traffic into the neighborhood, some from drug dealers. Brilliant! At least 2 residents have overdosed in the encampment and had to be taken away by ambulances. Oh, okay. So you won't call the police, but you'll get ambulances in here. But I thought that the firefighters, the whole medical profession, ambulances, isn't that a white supremacist legacy foundation formation kind of thing? Isn't that all? The whole systemic thing racist? EMS? Part of that? I don't know. Maybe. Oh. And shocking that this is what an individual would look like who is a far leftist. Shocked, I tell you. The influx of outsiders has kept Miss Albers awake at night. Oh, really? Though it is unlikely to happen, she has had visions of people from the tent camp forcing their way into her home. She imagines using a baseball bat to defend herself. Oh yeah, that'll work. Some 70-year-old woman's going to use a baseball bat on some drugged up homeless people. Good luck with that. Are we going to be reading about her in the crime statistics at some point? Not being able to call the police, as she has done for decades, has shaken her. I'm afraid, she said. I know my neighbors are around, but I'm not feeling grounded in my city at all. Anything can happen. And that's the thing. Here's the reality for individuals of wealth, which it seems like this neighborhood is, and I would say specifically white liberal types. When you live in a neighborhood of wealth and you see yourself surrounded by nothing but whiteys, of course you're going to feel safe, and you're going to be like, oh, F the police. We hate the police. They're out there beating up the black and the brown man. Oh, everything's so terrible. Let's organize. Let's organize, man. Oh, yeah, everything's great around here. I don't see any crime. Nothing, man. No. When it comes to your doorstep, though, reality hits just like that. And this is what everyone else deals with who doesn't have the privilege of living in privilege, like these individuals, the realities of crime. In the city where the movement began, residents are not surprised that it is being taken especially serious in Powderhorn Park, just blocks from Mr. Floyd's deadly encounter with the police. For decades, the community has been a refuge for scrappy working-class activists with far-left politics. The biggest day of the year, locals often boast, is the May Day parade celebrating laborers. Though it is one of the most diverse neighborhoods in Minneapolis, with black residents making up about 17% of the population, white people make up the largest group. About a third of the population is Latino. Since the camp has appeared, the community has organized shifts for delivering more meals, medical care, and counseling to people living in the park. Are these individuals licensed? Are they licensed medical professionals? Are they licensed counselors? If somebody overdoses, it seems like it would open up individuals to accountability within the neighborhood and potential lawsuits. Something to think about. They persuaded officials to back off an eviction notice served shortly after the campers arrived. But many in the neighborhood, who were already beleaguered from financial stresses of the CV, now say they are eager for the campers to move on to stable housing away from the park. Oh, we want the best for them. NIMBY, like they say, right? Not in my backyard. Oh, somebody should do something for those poor souls. Somebody should feed them, clothe them, give them job training, free housing. Oh, but not me. Let somebody else do that. NIMBY. I'm not being judgmental, said Carrie Nightshade, 44, who explained she no longer felt comfortable letting her children, 12 and 9, play in the park by themselves. It's not personal. It's just not safe. No, it's not personal. It's reality, idiot. Now step up. Grow some balls. balls and step up, do something. Protect your neighborhood. On Friday, she sat in a shared backyard with 4 other women who live in neighboring houses. The women, 4 of whom are white, had called a meeting to vent about the camp. Is that a racist meeting since there's no colored people there? Angela Roslick burst into tears explaining that she had spent the past 4 years fleeing unstable housing conditions and was struggling more than she cared to admit with the chaos the camp had brought to the neighborhood. Step up. Linnea Borden said she had stopped walking her dog through the park because she was tired of being catcalled. My emotions change every 30 seconds, said Tria Hauser, who is part Native American. This Linnea Borden, if she's getting catcalled, man, we need to see some photos of her, maybe. All right, I'm kidding, everybody, I'm kidding. The women who agreed to let any property damage, including to their own homes, go ignored, and to request a block party permit from the city to limit car traffic. Rather than turn to law enforcement if they saw anyone in physical danger, they resolved to call the American Indian Movement, a national organization created in 1968 to address Native American grievances such as police brutality, which had been policing its own community locally for years. Oh, I don't know anything about that. I've never heard of it. They mentioned this Hauser woman who's part Native. She obviously was instrumental in doing this. She's got the hookup over there. She's got connections. And the American Indian Movement? What the heck is that? Got a phone number, a hotline, a website? Interesting. But some people in the neighborhood have already found their best laid plans to avoid calling the police harder to execute than they imagined. Last Thursday night, Joseph McKenovich found a black man wearing a hospital bracelet passed out in the elevator of his apartment building 2 blocks away from the park. Mr. McKenovich, who was white, quickly phoned a community activist, but she did not pick up. He felt he had no choice but to call 911, so he did, but requested an ambulance only, not the police. Oh, you show him, Whitey. Ultimately, a white police officer arrived at the scene. Oh no. Should have told him to go away and told him to send a black officer instead. The officer checked the situation out briefly and then returned to a squad car. It didn't resolve in any way that I had hoped, Mr. McKenovich said. All they did was offer to bring him back to the hospital. He refused, so they kicked him out on a rainy night. Well, they kicked him out of where? Out of the apartment building? Well, then that's your fault, Joseph, because you were the one who got authorities or officials involved to begin with. You racist. Somebody, go out there. Somebody get out there on the street and paint BLM in front of Joseph McKenovich's apartment building. Come on, this guy's got to be racist. That poor black man got kicked out on a cold, rainy night because of him. NIMBY, like I say, over and over again. Oh. What's always funny about this is they find a way to blame the system. The system that they supposedly hate that's there to set up to help individuals. Oh, it's the system's fault. No way is it the responsibility of the individual for not wanting help. It's the system's fault. The system is the problem. That's how these idiots rationalize it to themselves. There's the wuss right there that looks like McKenovich. The impulse many white Powderhorn residents have to seek help from community groups rather than from the police is being felt in neighborhoods across the country. But some are finding the commitment hard to stand by when faced with the complex realities of life. Yes, the realities of life that not everybody's totally lovey-dovey and perfect, and they don't commit crime, and they're not all loving like in your liberal neighborhoods. Real people have real problems, and some people are horrible and commit crime. Some people have mental health issues through no fault of their own. It's like I was saying, if you live in this bubble, and again, this is my opinion that this is for more leftist types. I think righties and centrists kind of get this, but when you live in this bubble where everything's perfect, it's easy to say F the police and the man is keeping the colored people down, but the reality is there are people out there that commit crime and have other mental health issues. And these whiteys there, they're seeing what's up. That's all right though. They'll keep their same politics. If they got robbed and the liberals in the city let it happen, and property damage, assaults, rapes, whatever, They'll keep voting the same people in office, and they'll keep their same politics, and they'll remain clueless. Human nature. While friends and neighbors and even family members in Powderhorn agreed to avoid calling police at all costs, it's been harder to establish where to draw the line. Toby Miller, Mrs. Alber's 34-year-old daughter, lives just a block away from her mother, but lately, she said, they have felt a world apart. Miss Miller began a concerted effort last year to challenge her own privileges by taking a class on racial biases. I wonder who they're going to target and say is so horrible in that class. I wonder. She worries that a lot of what has been written about the camp on the community message boards has been influenced by racial profile. To the extent that illegal activity is going on in the park, Mrs. Miller does not blame the 10 residents. Here it comes. My feeling around it is those are symptoms of systematic oppression, she said. And that's not on them. And this is how criminals win. You keep blaming the system, not blaming the individual behavior. And this is where you know individuals are gone. They are just lost. And I hope in my life I never come across individuals like this. So if you are one of these individuals out there and you watch this video, just please don't leave me a comment. You can leave me a thumbs down. Actually, you can leave me a hate comment if you want, but I already know where you stand and I already know you're lost. So everything's going to be somebody else's fault. Yeah, sure, I get it. Let's go through one more paragraph here. I think we get it. This is an interesting development here, but it says here, Sheldon Stately Sr., 43, grew up in Powderhorn Park with his grandmother, one of the community's few black homeowners at the time. He returned there recently with a tent. Mr. Stately said that he had been homeless for 3 years after he could not make rent and lost his identification, which he could not afford to replace. And I don't know about Minneapolis or the state of Minnesota as a whole, but I know that in California, you can apply for a fee waiver for your identification replacement or to get a new ID for the first time. I think the fee here was $37 or something to get an ID. Maybe I'm wrong on that. It's probably changed since when I got mine before, but they do have something where you can get a fee waiver, but you have to print the form out online, and I imagine you can go in there and do the same. So nothing but excuses if Minnesota has the same kind of program. I imagine they do, because every state has all sort of handouts and everything like that for low-income individuals. So again, excuses. And you know what? If one of these whiteys in the neighborhood hears this story of his and watches my video, if you see Mr. Stately Sr., where's his kid, by the way? He's a senior. And Minneapolis or Minnesota does have a fee waiver program to help him get an identification. Print the form out for him, take it to him, help him fill it out, take him to the DMV, help this man get an identification. Because it seems to me like he's saying that his lost identification is the thing that's holding him back. So let's hook it up, man. I don't want to see anybody out there who, simply because they don't have an ID, that's part of the reason why they're homeless. I don't like seeing people homeless, and I'm not this super virtuous individual. I don't try to tout mine, but of the money I do donate to charitable causes, it's always things I've cited in the past. It's veterans organizations, it's homeless organizations, and it's organizations that help kids, like shelters and stuff like that, that help displaced kids, kids that are in the system, stuff like that. So help them out. Obviously, those are things that mean something to me, so I don't want to see this man out there all over an ID. There's Mr. Stately right there. There you see the encampment in the background. Looks like an able-bodied dude. Looks like he can still get out there and get some work. Apparently he just needs an ID. All right, everybody, we'll cut it off there. The article's pretty long, and this video's getting a little bit long already, but it's like I always say, it's interesting that people claim that they want to help, that they want to be part of the solution, or that they direct their ire at the system, at the man, systemic isms being what they are and all of that. But as I said, that comes with living a life of privilege, living a life in a bubble, let's say the echo chamber. Can you imagine 5 white liberal women in this neighborhood sitting on their porch talking about how to resolve issues around people of color and all of these great ideas that they think that they have about how they think they have the solution, and how this existence that they've lived, probably mostly privileged, based on wealth. We're not talking about skin color. I try to avoid that skin color privilege unless I'm making a joke about it. But to have lived this life of privilege, monetarily speaking, to live in nice neighborhoods, you don't really see what problems exist in communities. You don't really see who's committing the crime. You don't really see the problems. You don't drive downtown and see all the homeless people sleeping out there in tents, all the drug problems, stuff like that. And that woman did say it had even come to her neighborhood. She said she took steps to try to resolve it without involving the police. But that's always easy to say, and I'll leave it on this note. It's always easy to say, okay, I'm not going to call the police. We're not going to involve the police because we're looking out for the people of color, when you know the police are there. When you know that ultimately, if the shit really hits the fan, that you can pick up that phone and make that call. So imagine how you would feel if you're living like this and they strip away your protections. Say Minnesota or Minneapolis does vote to disband their police department. Oh, November. Gotta love it. I hope they do. I hope they vote to disband their police department, and we'll check back with these people in a couple years and see what kind of feelings they have about their vote. But when you vote to disband the police, when you remove that layer of protection there, and then all of a sudden it creates this heightened anxiety in you and kind of helps you check your privilege a little bit. Well, you get what you want, right? You get what you voted for. So we'll see what happens in November. All right, everybody, let me know what you think. All right, take care, everybody. Be safe.